Hey everybody, Peter Zeihan here. I'm a geopolitical strategist, which is a fancy way of saying that I help people make sense of the world. And I deal with a lot. I deal with energy and manufacturing, industrial commodities, agriculture, finance, and on and on and on. As for the places, runs the gamut. North America to Africa, Africa to the East Asian Rim, the East Asian Rim to the European continent, Europe to the former Soviet Union to Latin America, and back again. If you sign up for my pod on Patreon for a small fee, you not only get videos every day, you get access to our community forum where you can interact with me relatively regularly, and once a quarter you will have the option of joining us for a live seminar where you can put your questions to me very directly. Anyway, love to see everybody there. Join us on Patreon or wherever I happen to be.
Hey everybody, Peter Zeihan here, coming to you from the beautiful chaos that is Dallas Love Airport, headquarters of Southwest Airlines. In the aftermath of a video I recently did on the Israelis and their thinking in perhaps striking Iran and specifically going after the oil sector, I thought it would be worth noting how that would hit a couple of things, most notably here in the United States. So Iran, their oil production has been suffering for years. Part of it is sanctions, but mostly it's because their regulatory regime is really punishing for would-be foreign investors. So they basically require that the state take a leading role in everything, and the state company is not very good. Most of the oil fields in Kazakhstan are mature and require a lot of technology that the Iranians don't have and don't understand in order to make them produce meaningfully. And everything else that is worth having is offshore, and the Iranians have absolutely no ability to operate offshore by themselves. So while the numbers that officially hit the market ebb and flow because of the sanctions regime and whether or not the Iranians are attempting to sneak around sanctions, the actual flow is about 1 million barrels per day of exports. Sometimes it's as low as 400,000, sometimes it feels a little bit higher, but about 1 million. Now, you remove 1 million barrels a day from the market, and we're going to feel it, but that is only 1%. So you would expect by itself, in a purely market-driven environment, that to kick up prices by $10, maybe $15 a barrel. Of course, because it was done by someone dropping a bomb on something, there will be a war premium on top of that. So the impact globally is going to be felt, it's going to be real, but it's not going to be huge. As for the United States, I'm really not concerned. The United States is no longer an energy importer. We've come a long way since 2007 when we were importing something like 14, 15 million barrels a day. Courtesy of the shale revolution, the United States is now arguably one of the lowest cost producers in the world, and our production is well over 20 million barrels a day. Moreover, the United States has diversified its economic strength and now is absorbing far fewer barrels. Now, if you look at the headline numbers, you're not going to see that, but that's because the United States Energy Department figures math a little bit differently from everyone else. We look at the amount of crude that we actually consume in total, including what goes into our refineries for product that is then exported. That's not how most countries do it. The argument of the AIS is that nobody consumes raw crude. It has to be turned into something. So, it's not a stupid way to look at the data. But it does make it look like we are more dependent on international trade than we are. In fact, if you consider all the types of crude that the United States produces, raw crude, natural gas liquids, condensates, we now have such a huge surplus that by the end of this year, the United States will be exporting 5 million barrels a day of refined product. And in the history of the petroleum era, there are only 3 countries that have ever produced more than 5 million barrels per day of raw crude, and we're exporting that much in refined product. So just the degree to which the United States is insulated from this is robust. Now, do keep in mind that oil is an internationally traded product, and so there is a more or less single global oil price point because it is a easily exchanged commodity. But if we ever get to the point that there is an oil shock, I don't think that'll happen with Iran, but if we ever get to the point that there is an oil shock that drives prices to a point that the American president finds untenable, the U.S. president, courtesy of powers granted back in 2015, has the authority to summarily suspend all exports of raw crude, and we do a lot of that too. And if that happens, the crude gets trapped within North America, we get a supersaturated energy market, and then North American energy prices separate from global energy prices in a manner very similar to what has already happened with natural gas prices. U.S. natural gas prices, because of a similar glut in natural gas, are, as a rule, 1/4 to 1/8 what they are in Europe or Asia. So if we ever do get into a situation where the crude price is sketchy, you can count on the American president, whoever it happens to be, to enact that power. And then all of a sudden we've got energy prices here that rarely will go above 60 because every shale oil field we have is cost competitive at that price. And everyone else screams right past 100, go on their way to 200 and more. Okay. That's it for me. Of course, the biggest downside of being here is because it's Southwest Hub and it's open seating, you have to check in 24 hours online in order to get a decent seat. And because I was launching this new thing called Patreon 24 hours ago, I forgot. So I am C51. I will be the sad person up against the bathroom trying to squeeze his lengthy-ass 6'5" frame into a middle seat that does not recline. Pray for me.